Scorched Earth, from Doctor Who Annual 1975. Well, this certainly seems a pleasant enough place, said Doctor Who, as the TARDIS landed gently somewhere in the universe, somewhere in time. Looks like the TARDIS has brought us somewhere peaceful for a change. Sarah Jane Smith reserved comment as she looked out through the viewing screen. It certainly looked peaceful enough, but experience had taught her that things very rarely stayed calm and quiet with the Doctor around. "Where are we, Doctor?" she asked. "Have you been able to calculate our bearings in space?" The Doctor was busy making calculations at the control console of the TARDIS. Photon propulsion specific impulse, 30 million seconds. Estimated intergalactic distance in light years. Yes, I have it. We have landed on the planet known to Earth as Varium 3. Scientific exploration teams have been here, but the planet attracted little interest. Very similar to Earth, with a remarkably stable atmosphere. "Sounds good," said Sarah. "I thought we could do with a little holiday. Let's go out and explore, shall we?" Doctor Who pressed a button, and the door of the TARDIS opened slowly. They stepped out in the pale sunlight and found themselves in one of the fields of a small farm, not far from the farmhouse, which seemed solidly built in a style similar to the 18th century on Earth. Clustered around the farmhouse were one or two outbuildings, and the fields of the farm were separated by neat hedgerows. This is lovely," said Sarah, stretching her legs happily. "Just like England must have been hundreds of years ago. Don't you think so, Doctor?" But the Doctor was hardly listening. He was bending down, studying the ground intently and poking about in the soil. "Come over here, Sarah," he said at last. "What do you make of this?" Sarah could see that the ground looked very dry and infertile. The only evidence of plant life was a few brown, withered stems and leaves here and there. "Looks like the field's been scorched," she said. "I suppose they've been burning the stubble of a crop. Farmers do that, don't they? The agricultural correspondent on the Daily Star is a good friend of mine, which is how I came by this piece of knowledge." "Well, it's true that farmers do sometimes do that," smiled the Doctor, "but somehow I don't think even your friend would be able to explain this away too easily. Look, even the hedges and the trees are affected. But if you look closely, you'll see that it's not really like burning at all. No, I'd say this is probably something more like—" The Doctor broke off in mid-sentence and flung himself to the ground, dragging Sarah with him. Just in time he'd seen the bowman, and even as he and Sarah flattened themselves along the ground, the first arrow whizzed over their heads, missing them by inches, and embedded itself with a dull thud in a nearby tree. "Keep down, Sarah," yelled the Doctor. "They'll fire again. They're all around us." The quiet rural scene on Varium 3 had certainly been deceptive. As Sarah twisted her head slightly to look around, she could see that they were surrounded by men dressed in the simple country costumes of olden times, but armed with a frightening array of weapons: crossbows, clubs, sickles, and catapults filled with heavy rocks. "Shall we try and make it to the TARDIS, Doctor?" said Sarah, determined to keep her head, though she was very frightened. "No, we'd never get there, Sarah," replied the Doctor. "And anyway, I can see they've already posted a guard round the door. No, we'll just have to give ourselves up and try and talk our way out of this. I wonder just what exactly they think we've done." The Doctor raised his head gingerly from the ground and called across the field. "Don't shoot! We surrender! We're unarmed!" The ring of armed men closed slowly in until they were completely trapped. At last one of the men spoke. "You are our prisoners. You will come with us. You must answer to Marshal Zona. Stand up and do not try to escape." The man stared at them with vicious eyes and gripped his club more tightly in his hand. Sarah and the doctor stood up, and one of the men searched them to make sure they were carrying no weapons. They led them off in the direction of the farmhouse and pushed them into a small, disused outbuilding which had no windows and smelled damp and musty. The door was slammed behind them, and Sarah and the doctor were left alone. But not for long. Just 5 minutes later, the door opened once more, and 2 guards appeared.
"Marshal Zona will see you now," said one.
"We must be pretty important people to this Zona fellow," said the doctor to Sarah. "I shall be most interested to hear what he's got to say." "I shall be most interested if he says we're free to go," said Sarah. "I don't fancy being pushed back into that old barn again. I'm sure there are mice in there. And beetles, too." The guards led them into the kitchen of the farmhouse, where Marshal Zona was seated at the head of a heavy oak table. He was a tall, heavily built man, dressed in the same simple clothes as those of his followers, and had obviously been chosen as leader of this quiet rural race because of his size and strength. The guard spoke.
"Sire, these are the prisoners who landed in the sky cart. It is they who are sending down the streaks of fire and scorching our crops."
"Streaks of fire?" said the doctor. "What are you talking about, my good man?"
"Silence!" ordered the guard.
"You have sent the streaks of fire from the sky," began Marshal Zona,
"and they have destroyed our crops. My people are starving. They live in fear each night of the streaks of fire and the great noises. But now, at last, we have captured you, and you shall die. Your sky cart shall be destroyed, and my people will be saved."
Sarah drew in her breath at the mention of the sky cart, the TARDIS. "Doctor," she whispered, "if they destroy the TARDIS, we'll never be able to escape from this place, even if we manage to get away from the guards." "Don't worry, Sarah," replied the doctor. "I've set the electronic locks. The TARDIS is invulnerable to attack. But we still have 1 or 2 little problems."
"Cease your chatter, prisoners," spat out the guard.
"Marshal Zona," said the doctor, "you must listen to us. We are not your enemies. We have no knowledge of the streaks of fire. We want to help you."
"You lie, prisoner. You came in a sky cart from the skies. It is you who have sent us this disaster."
"No," said the doctor. "It's true we came from the skies. We are travelers from a land far away from yours. But we have come in peace. You must trust me. I was looking at your crops before your men arrested us, and I believe that the scorching can be stopped from spreading." The marshal was plainly at a loss. These people didn't look or act like evil enemies, it was true, but they had come out of the sky. The prisoner the girl called Doctor said that they had come from a land far away from Varian 3. The marshal had heard stories that such lands existed, but none of his people had ever found them. Perhaps those old stories were true, and perhaps the prisoners spoke the truth. The marshal had made his decision.
"Very well," he said. "I will give you a chance to prove what you say. You may go out into the fields and look for a solution to the plague of the scorched earth. My men will help you all they can, but be warned. Do not try to escape. The guards have orders to kill without hesitation."
"Thank you, Marshal," said the doctor, breathing a sigh of relief. "I will do all I can to rid you of this plague."
"You have until nightfall tonight," said Marshal Zona. "If you do not succeed, you will die. Both of you," he added menacingly, pointing a finger at Sarah.
"Well, we're safe for a while, Sarah," said the doctor, as the guards led them out into the fields again. "So long as I can find a solution to the scorched earth before tonight." "Have you any idea what might be causing it?" asked Sarah. "Yes. I'm pretty sure that this is a very rare strain of virus which has been activated by that freak storm they had here recently. Freak storm? Of course. The streaks of fire and the great noises. But surely they've had storms here before. Probably not in living memory. As I told you, Varium 3 has an almost perfectly stable atmosphere. Did you notice how weakly their sun shines? There are only very occasionally any extremes of weather here. No wonder they were all so frightened by the storm. Doctor, do you think you'll be able to stop the virus spreading? Asked Sarah. I'm certainly going to try, said the doctor, opening the electronic locks on the TARDIS and setting up his laboratory bench. For their sake, and for ours. The doctor asked Marshal Zona's men to bring in some big handfuls of the affected soils for analysis. They were very ready to help him, but they never once let either Sarah or the doctor out of their sight, and they always kept their crude but vicious weapons by their sides. The doctor worked all through the long afternoon, trying one chemical compound after another on the powerful strain of virus. Nothing seemed to have any effect. This is the most virulent strain I've ever come up against, Sarah, said the doctor at last, looking perplexed and worried. It's going to be a lot more difficult than I thought. I've been racking my brains for a solution, but every known method has failed so far. But doctor, said Sarah quietly, beginning to feel anxious, you only have another few hours. Marshal Zona wasn't joking when he said he'd kill us. And we can't possibly escape in the TARDIS. They've got us much too well guarded. Just then a guard entered the TARDIS with a tray of food. There was a very skimpy helping of bread and cheese for the doctor and Sarah to share. Sarah looked at the tiny amount of food on the wooden platter. Gosh, this doesn't look too appetizing, she said. I wish it was a big plate of fish and chips, with plenty of salt and vinegar. The doctor leapt up without answering Sarah and raced back to the laboratory bench. Sarah followed him in, wondering whatever could be the matter. The doctor was busy with a rack of test tubes, adding a white substance to some of them. Keep your fingers crossed, Sarah, said the doctor. All the greatest scientific discoveries are found by chance, or so they say, and you might just have found the answer to our problems. Sodium chloride. Common salt. Do you really think it might work, Doctor? Asked Sarah anxiously. Well, all we can do now is sit and wait, Sarah, replied the doctor. If this doesn't work, we're going to have to do some quick thinking when darkness falls, because I can't think of anything else to try. The next few hours seemed very long indeed. Soon it began to grow dark, and still there was no change in the soil in the test tubes. Then they heard a deep voice at the door of the TARDIS. It was Marshal Zona. Prisoners, your time is up. If you have failed, now you must die. Let's go and see, shall we? Said the doctor, leading the way to the workbench. Sarah held her breath as Doctor Who walked over to the test tube rack. And she breathed a sigh of relief when she followed his pointing finger. The solution had worked. Several of the test tubes contained soil which had now completely reverted to its natural colour. The scorched appearance had almost completely gone. Yes, Marshal, we've found the solution, said Doctor Who, and it's a very simple answer. Salt. Common table salt. All you have to do is cover the fields with salt, and very soon they will be fertile and green again. But the Marshal didn't react as they had imagined he would. Salt, he cried contemptuously. Bah! What use is that? Where will we find enough salt to cover all our fields? This is a useless answer. You die, prisoners. Wait, Marshal, said the doctor. Have you forgotten that you have seas full of salt water? There is such a sea not half a mile from here. I've seen it on maps of your planet. You are talking of the Great Water, said the Marshal suspiciously. But it is dangerous there. My people never venture near it.
There are strange creatures in the water with no legs or arms. We have no use for the water, so we never approach it."
"Well, you've got a use for it now," said Doctor Who. "I will show you how to build a simple pump and pipeline to carry the salt waters of your sea to your infected fields. And while you wait to plant new crops and to see them grow, I will show you how to find food for your people in the seas. There's no need to be afraid of the great water, or of the creatures which we call fish." The Marshal kept Sarah and the Doctor prisoner for the next few days until he was sure that everything they had told him was true. At last he called them to him.
"You have done my people a great service," he said. "We are saved from famine and death. Everything you have told us is true. How can we ever repay you?"
"We need no repayment, Marshal Zona," said the Doctor. "But we must leave you now. You no longer need our help, and we have many journeys to make, to places far away which your people have never dreamt of. We will go at once."
"Go in peace and with our deepest thanks," said the Marshal. "Our grandchildren shall never forget the tale we shall tell them of the man and woman who came from the skies and saved our race."
As Doctor Who set the controls in the TARDIS, Sarah could see the Marshal and some of his men waiting and watching outside. Suddenly a thought occurred to her. "Doctor, what about when the next storm comes? Won't the virus begin again?" "No, Sarah. The salt should kill it off completely now. But even if it does begin, it could never get a strong hold again, as they will be able to apply the remedy immediately. And anyway," added the Doctor as an afterthought, "if my calculations are correct, they won't have another storm for the next 30,000 years.
Don't forget to click below and subscribe to the official Doctor Who YouTube channel.